Hello and welcome back to Grim Tales. Before we begin, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I love reading every single one. If you enjoy dark, twisted, grim tales that send chills down your spine, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Now, get comfortable, dim the lights if you dare, relax your mind, let the outside world fade away, and let's begin. Story 1, most of this happened in Northern California in the fall of 2019. It was before COVID, before therapy, before trauma pushed most of it deep into the back of my mind. For years, I tried to run from it. I tried to bury it under work, distance, new places, new people, and whatever else helped me feel like I was not still there. But lately, something has started to feel the same again. I am far away from that place now, but it is all coming back. Not all at once. It comes back at night, in pieces, underneath everything else. A sound in the wall. A smell in the air after rain, the way ash gathers in corners where it should not be. I found old notes I had written in my phone back then, and I have been using those, along with whatever I can still remember, to piece the story together. I am posting this because I need it written down somewhere outside my own head. But more than that, I am posting because someone, somewhere, has to know what I mean when I say the ground can remember. This is what I remember. On a Thursday morning, Justin texted me. He said he was busy that night, but I should come by around 3 or something. Someone would be there. Getting to Valence Park felt strange from the start. I did not have much to my name back then. Not much money, not many personal things, not much of a plan. But I was lucky in one way. The bus stop was only a couple of blocks from Justin's place. When I stepped off the bus, I stood on the sidewalk and looked around, and I saw nothing. I mean that in the most literal way. There was almost nothing there. I had expected it, but expecting something does not make it easier when you finally see it. The whole neighborhood had been flattened by the firestorm that tore through it the year before. The flames had come in fast, leaving ruin behind like fallout after a war. That fire changed my life, too. Though not in the same way it changed Valence Park. My dad and I had lost our rental after our landlord got burned out and decided to move back into the place we were living in. Justin had gone through something similar. He was a victim of the fire, too, but his family had money and connections. That made all the difference. I had known Justin a little from high school. Not friends, exactly. I had been a photographer for the yearbook, and he had been a football starter. I knew who he was, and he probably knew me as one of the camera kids who showed up at games and pep rallies. Later, we ended up in the same anthropology class at community college. I decided pretty early that he was the one person in that class I wanted to befriend. Not because I loved his personality or anything like that. He just seemed like someone who always had people around him, and at that point in my life, I needed people. I joined a study group, which led to projects with him. That was where I met Julie, who thought she was dating Justin exclusively, even though Justin clearly did not understand the word exclusive. I also met Davis and Maria there. Davis was one of Justin's roommates in the new house. He was quiet, thin, and hard to read. He spoke like every word cost him something. He seemed to value his time and energy more than anything else, and I respected that even when it made him frustrating to talk to. From what I understood, there was space in the house for one more person. So I worked on Justin for a few weeks. I do not love admitting that, but it is true. I was friendly. I was helpful. I laughed at his jokes. I made myself useful in the study group. Then, when the moment seemed right, I told him part of my story. I said that ever since the eviction, things had been rough. I told him I had a place inside my aunt's house at first, but then her failure of a son moved back in, and I got pushed into the garage. I told him I did not even know there were rats out there until after I moved in. I told him the chances of getting out were bad, and had been bad since the fire. Justin's attention changed when I mentioned the fire. "You got messed up by that fire too?" he asked. His interest sharpened. He sniffled a little, probably from the cold morning air, but there was something else in his face too, a sting of memory, a flash of something hot. I told him my dad and I had been evicted because our landlord was trying to take advantage of the situation after the fire. That part was not fully true. It was a white lie. But at that point, I did not feel bad about it. I needed a way out. Justin nodded like he understood more than I had said. "We rebuilt, bro," he told me. "That's where I live. We were one of the first to move back. My parents are living in the coastal house right now, and we have room for at least one more if you're interested." Just like that, I was in. A few days later, I was standing in Valance Park, looking at a neighborhood that felt like it had been wiped from time. Even the trees seemed afraid to come back. It had been about 13 months since the wildfire tore through, but the ground still looked sick. Gray ash mixed with tan dirt. Burned lots sat open and empty. Pieces of homes were still scattered everywhere, even though people had tried to clean up. The earth kept its memory no matter how much people scraped away. The sidewalk had lost all sense of what a sidewalk was supposed to be. It lifted, sank, cracked, and bent without pattern. I had to watch every step so I would not roll an ankle. Looking around, I felt like I was inside an unfinished video game map. Empty plots waited to be filled with concrete, wood, people, life, and memories. But for now, the place lacked humanity. There were a few trailers where homeowners had returned to guard their lots or wait for insurance, but hope did not live in the air. The smell did. That smell had never left. It was like an abandoned campfire mixed with rotten barbecue. It had a thick, greasy quality that made your body react before your mind did. It was not just smoke. It was smoke after death. The smell of green earth and living things was gone, and in its place was something hollow. The only thing I could compare it to was the smell of war in movies and history books, though I had never been to war. It felt like the land had lost the battle quickly, violently, and completely. There were small signs of rebuilding, a few crews here and there, new lumber, fresh concrete, the early sprouts of hope. But nothing nearby looked like Justin's house. His dad was an architect, and his uncle was a general contractor, so they had practically speed-run the rebuilding process. The house was huge, 5 bedrooms, brand new, built on nearly an acre in the middle of what was technically a suburb, because they had bought the back neighbor's land too. It was surrounded by a tall timber fence that made it look like a small private fortress. It was probably the nicest house I had ever been inside in my life. When I walked up, I saw 2 cars in the driveway. Neither belonged to Justin, so I hoped he had told Brent or Davis that I was coming. The second story of the house blocked the sun as I stepped onto the porch, putting me in a kind of man-made shadow. I knocked. Then I knocked again. Then again. From inside, I heard muffled voices. DoorDash? I didn't order anything. I recognized Davis's quiet voice, so I called out, "Yo, Brent. It's Sam. Davis and Justin know I'm coming through." Another voice said, Is this that random dude? Then Davis said, "Okay, I'll grab him." Brent opened the door and looked at me with mild confusion. "Oh, Sam," he said. "I think I know you, right? Probably from a Julie party. Julie hated me because I had messed up her cheer photos once, so I had definitely never been to one of her parties." But Brent did not need to know that. "Yeah, man, has to be," I said. "What's good?" I dapped him up and walked inside. The first thing I said was, "Damn nice pad." And it really was. It was a big suburban house with custom details everywhere. Natural wood, clean walls, high ceilings. Art that looked expensive, but not in a cold way. It had warmth, or at least it was supposed to. The first floor was wide open. From the entrance, you could basically see wall to wall. Brent shrugged like he was used to it. "Yeah, the natural wood is sick as hell," he said. "I could give you the grand tour, but you can pretty much see most of the bottom floor from here. Your room is on the other side of the living room, hallway to the garage. We're all upstairs, but we mostly hang in the living room and kitchen until late anyway. I could not have cared less where the room was. It was more than perfect for me." "Nah, man, that's awesome. I'm going to drop my bags." I crossed the cathedral-like living room, where Davis and Maria were sitting on a massive custom couch, working on something for class. They both looked up and gave me a quick hey as I passed. Maria brushed her short hair away from her tan face and leaned closer to Davis as they returned to the project. On the other side of the living room, I found a hallway with 3 doors and another door at the end. My room was the only door on the right. I opened it and froze for a second. The room was beautiful. It was huge compared to what I was used to. A full-sized bed sat against one wall. There was a desk, a drafting table, and a couple of bookcases. A bunch of extra stuff had been pushed to one side, probably things belonging to Justin's parents, but there was still plenty of space. I dropped all my things on the floor and lay down on the bed. "Finally," I said out loud. I do not think I had felt that kind of relief in months. The rest of the night was easy. Justin showed up later with a girl who was not Julie, and someone ordered Chinese food. We all ate together. At one point, I asked how long they had been in the house. "Just over 2 months," Justin said. "My parents don't need to work much, so they're staying out by Jenner. They moved some stuff here to make more space there, and they come by every so often. That's mostly what's in your room. Don't break it, and you're chillin', man." I told him I would not touch anything. Then I looked at Davis and said, "Now that she's gone, are you and Maria a thing?" Davis shrugged. "I don't know. We're just doing our project." That was Davis. Impossible to read. I asked if he needed help with the project. He looked like he had to think about what the word help meant. "I don't care," he said. "You can if you want." Davis was an enigma in every way. He was a lanky white guy with strawberry brown hair, and from what I could tell, the only reason he went to community college was to save money. He always seemed like someone who had already decided most things were not worth reacting to. Brent asked if I had lived near Fulton High. I told him I went to St. Gregory with a bunch of those guys. He said he still played baseball for the community college. I explained that I had been in a rental with my dad, but after we got kicked out, my dad moved to the capital for work and I stayed. "That sucks," Brent said, giving me a fist bump with his mouth full of wonton. "Glad you're here, bro." It was a simple thing to say, but honestly, it felt good. For the first time in a while, I had a place that felt calm. Technically, I had fewer roommates than before, too, if you counted the rats at my aunt's garage. We ended up smoking outside without Justin and watching old Spike reruns until I went to bed around midnight. I am not a heavy sleeper, but I am not a light sleeper either. I am somewhere in the middle. That first night, though, I could not stay asleep for more than 90 minutes at a time. I do not know if it was the new place or the absence of the constant anxiety I had been living with, but something kept pulling me awake. At first, I thought I was hearing the rats from my aunt's garage. I would wake up ready to fight them, fist clenched in the dark, only to remember I was not there anymore. The sound was not loud, it was just annoying. A light scratch. Scratch, it did not seem to come from the window. The third time I woke up, I got out of bed and checked outside. There was a young tree near my window, but it was nowhere near tall enough to touch the glass. I stood there for a minute, listening. I figured maybe it was phantom tinnitus or my brain replaying old noises because it had gotten too used to them. Maybe it would stop once I settled in. The quiet in that place was strange. Inside the house, it was almost deafening. But outside was something else. Something unreal. It felt like the bugs had not heard that the real estate was open again. There was maybe one cricket outside, singing a lonely song in the dark. I remember thinking of how soldiers from old wars described the silence after battle. This was probably the closest I would ever get to that feeling. Total vacancy. I sat with that void for a while. And despite the scratching, I felt almost peaceful. Nothing could be worse than my last place. The rats, the cold, the rock-hard futon, the feeling that I was not wanted anywhere. I would not give up that room for anything. Even if rats moved in, at least the room itself was nice. And I doubted my aunt would want me back anyway. On my way out, I had taken a few things I needed, plus a little of my cousin's weed. With that nervous but grateful feeling in my chest, I returned to bed. Just before I fell asleep, one last soft scritch carried me under. In the morning, everything felt normal again. Not perfect, but normal. Justin was in the kitchen, wearing only boxers, seeing off the girl who was not Julie. Davis was there too, eating donuts. Brent had not woken up yet. Davis looked at Justin through a mouthful of donut and said, "You know, you could find one nice girl." Justin snickered. Oh, she was good, all right. He grabbed a donut and shoved it in his mouth before looking at me. "Morning, sailor. How'd you sleep?" "Well enough," I said. "First nice night's sleep I've had in a bit. It's damn quiet, though. Yeah, I feel that. I usually just play music. X always helps me sleep. Maybe I'll try that." I looked at Davis and asked if he had plans for the weekend. He seemed to search his mind as he chewed. "Work? Homework? Walk?" "Riveting as always, Davis," Justin said. "Anyway, I'll be going to Julie's party on Saturday. Probably gym the other 2 days. Heard there's a good comedy movie out. Might go to the Roxy and see it with Regan. Supposed to be crazy." "So that's not Julie's name," I said, pointing toward the closed door. Justin shook his head fast. "Her? No, that was Frankie. I don't watch movies with Julie." Then he snapped his fingers like he had remembered 2 things at once and headed toward the couch. "Actually, some ball is on soon. I'll be here if you need me." I turned to Davis. "I think I'm going to explore the neighborhood." Davis gave me a small nod. For some reason, getting a nod of approval from Davis felt like receiving an award. I got ready, grabbed my old camera, and headed out on my board. The roads were in bad shape. As soon as I left the driveway, my wheels hit crumbled charcoal pellets scattered across the road. They rolled and shifted under me like they had somewhere to go. The pavement had lost paint, smoothness, and structure. There were potholes big enough to swallow a tire. If I had not been skating for years, I would have ended up on the ground almost immediately. The strangest thing was what coated the streets. Everywhere I looked, there were fragments of other people's lives. Shiny silver bits, bubbled blue plastic, black pieces of cloth like material, little pieces of reality that had survived while the stories behind them had burned away. The whole neighborhood told the story of a lost battle. Quick, aggressive, hot final to fire had ended everything it touched. There was one place I wanted to see, a couple of blocks south of the bus station. In the heart of the neighborhood sat what remained of an elementary school. Coffee Elementary. The fire had hit it directly, burning most of the small school into melted, jagged pieces of old stucco-style construction. Some of the debris had been cleared, but not all of it. The main thing left was the school's old bulletin board. The lettering was warped by heat, but I could still read it. Coffee Elementary School. Above it hung a cracked vinyl banner that said "In Memoriam of the 31 victims of the Grayson Fire." Below it, photographs had been attached to the sign. They were all different sizes, different styles, different levels of damage. That made sense in a terrible way. When your house burns down, so do most of your photos. Some of these looked like old film pictures. Some were faded inkjet prints. Some were sun-bleached. Others were warped by weather. A few were pixelated, as if someone had printed them from a low-quality phone image. The dark eyes in some of the black and white photos looked like they were crying because the ink had run downward from the pupils. There were repeated photos of the same people. Older pictures, newer pictures, school photos, family shots, badly printed memorial images. Messages had been written around them, now fading. I miss you. Forever in our hearts. We love you. The worst part was the bottom section of the memorial. There were moldy stuffed bears, wilted plastic flowers, and a few class photos with names written on them. Looking closely, I realized at least a handful of the victims had been children. Some were no higher than 5th grade. In the middle, there was a photo of a girl whose name had faded almost beyond recognition. I could only make out that it started with an M. It was a high school portrait. She looked about my age when she died. I was so caught up in the memorial that I did not notice the woman approaching until she was beside me. Nothing compares to that night, she said. I jumped slightly. Oh, yeah, she looked at the memorial, not at me. I know you weren't here. I can see it in your eyes. I was. I remember the sounds. You couldn't hear anything. I turned toward her. She looked to be in her late 50s, a little slouched with gray blonde hair. Nothing about her was unusual at first glance. It was that? Loud? I asked. The winds were howling. 70 miles per hour, they said. I lived down the street from little Sarah. She burned. Her parents were out that night and couldn't get back into Valence Park. The whole neighborhood would have helped if any of us knew. But it was those damn trees. The smoke and embers. You couldn't see past them. I told her I had been on the other side of town that night and remembered seeing the orange glow in the sky, like an eye peeking through the dark. So, you just moved here? She asked. Yeah, name's Sam. I'm just trying to get familiar with the area. Welcome to Valence Park, then, Sam. I'm in one of the trailers around here. Once the damn insurance company gives me something, I'll be in my house again. Well, I hope the best for you, Darlene. Nice to meet you, Darlene. Not to be weird. But can I take your photo? Please do. I raised my camera. Tunk, the shutter jammed. Sorry, I said. It's old. I tried again. Click. It worked perfectly that time. Thanks for talking to me, Sam, Darlene said. It gets empty around here. No problem. I turned to leave, but she called my name. Sam, I looked back. Yeah, Darlene? She smiled slightly. Watch out for the ground at night. If it moves, just go the other way. Then she chuckled and walked off, disappearing behind a new build. I stood there for a moment. What? She was gone. I had no idea what she meant. I figured maybe it was some old wine ant proverb, or maybe she was warning me about broken pavement and crumbling sidewalks. Do not break your neck on a night walk. Something like that. After that, I rode toward the edge of the neighborhood, where businesses started to appear again. I bought food for the week and some essentials from a Mexican grocery store. I got home around 4, unloaded everything, and stocked my little sections of the cupboard and fridge. Everyone was either gone or hiding in their rooms. Then I relaxed for a bit before work. I took the bus to my shift, which was as uneventful as usual. I worked from 5 to 11 closing. When I locked up, I realized my new living situation made getting home a lot easier. The night bus only ran every hour, but I could make it to the house in 20 or 30 minutes on my board. I checked the schedule and decided skating home was the best choice. On the way back from the mall, I felt the town change under my wheels before I really saw it. Commercial areas gave way to industrial lots. Industrial lots gave way to a strip mall corridor lined with struggling businesses. I passed a nail salon, a closed check-cashing place, and a taqueria with one fluorescent tube flickering on and off like it was giving up. It reminded me of the mall where I worked. The same slow death, just spread thinner over more square feet. Anywhere, America, copied over and over until the copy degraded and started eating itself. Then the streetlights slowly disappeared. The road got worse. I bounced and shook on my board like a flea in an earthquake. The pavement was uneven, broken, and loose. If a car had come down the road, I do not know if I would have had enough control to avoid it. A slight downhill grade picked up my speed, and before I could slow myself down, my wheels struck something wrong. I slammed into the ground. I knew how to fall. I had been falling off skateboards for most of my life. I rolled as best I could, skidding across rough pavement until I came to a stop among scattered pieces of broken asphalt. For a moment, I just lay there on my side, staring at the street from an angle I did not want to be at, deciding whether I had the strength or the will to get up. That was when I heard it. I did not see anything. I did not feel anything at first. I did not smell or taste anything. But somehow, I had the horrible feeling that whatever it was could do all of that to me and more. The scratching. Scrape, it sounded long. Too long. Like something dragged across a distance greater than any arm could reach. The sound came from far away and close by at the same time, scraping toward me through the ground. Then it changed. It became a scurry. Constant, layered alive beneath the pavement. The quiet gaps between sounds grew shorter each second. I pressed my ear closer to the road. Small, warm pebbles dug into the outside of my ear. I forced the ground to feed its vibrations into me. What I felt was frantic, almost aggressive, like a boiling pot, but instead of water, it was filled with churning earth. I tried to understand what it could be. We were in an active fault area, sure, But this did not feel like an earthquake. It was too focused, too purposeful. Then, I saw a storm drain ahead of me. I crawled toward it. The sound grew louder the closer I got. It became sharper, faster, more layered. It sounded like multiple things, maybe hundreds of things, moving together in a rhythm I could not understand. I reached the opening and peered inside. Darkness, the sound echoed inside the pipe system, but it seemed farther in. I leaned closer so my ear could catch it better. At first, the sound stayed the same. Then it moved, closer, a little louder, then louder, then much louder. It was coming toward the opening. I snapped back from the drain and scrambled for my board. The cracking, thumping, scratching noise grew until it was as loud as a freight ship passing through a tunnel. Then, whoosh, nothing, the sound vanished instantly. I put my ear to the ground again. Silence. I pressed harder one last time, just to make sure nothing was still calling from below. It was gone. The only explanation I could come up with was old gas pipes or something in the water system. I did not know. I only knew I needed to get home and sleep it off. When I got back, it was about 12:30. Only Davis and a sleepy Maria were on the couch, watching TV. "How's it going tonight?" I asked. Davis nodded. Maria gave me a quiet hi. I moved through their view of the TV and went to my room, exhausted from the whole thing, especially from wiping out on the road. I decided to take a shower before bed. The bathroom was across the hallway. It was my first shower in that bathroom. It was sparkling clean, brand new, and probably barely used since everyone else showered upstairs. I remember thinking about how untouched it felt. Then I turned the handle. Gray water came gushing out. I stood there naked, staring at it. The water was a deep, cloudy gray. I told myself it was probably sediment from new pipes. The pressure changed with every burst. It went from soft flow to jet speed, then down to a dribble, then back again. The faucet seemed to have no control over itself. The color darkened. The water thickened. Sediment drawn up from somewhere in the earth turned the water soot black. It splattered onto the clean white shower floor and stained it instantly. The room began to shake. A loud rage built inside the pipes, like the whole plumbing system had a fever it could not survive. The roaring water shook me so badly that I finally reached out and turned it off. The violence stopped at once. I stood there, dripping and confused. Then I wrapped a towel around myself and went upstairs for a shower. "The shower downstairs is messed up," I told Davis. "New house, new problems," he said. That was Davis's entire contribution. I showered upstairs, and thankfully, the water was normal. After that, I went back to my bed and fell asleep. In my sleep, I dreamed of scratching. Maybe it was only a nightmare. Or maybe the sound was real and slipped into my thoughts. Either way, it felt like it was trying to get into my mind. Each scratch peeled away another layer. Flesh, skull, brain, it dug deeper with every sound. I woke up normally the next morning. The nightmare felt like just a nightmare. Everyone was in the kitchen eating breakfast, including Maria and Julie, who I had not even known was there. The day started uneventfully. I did some homework and worked a 4 to 9 shift. On my break, I walked around the mall and noticed how much worse it had gotten over the last few months. After back-to-school season, it was practically empty. Only 3 real places to eat were still there, so I got Subway and scarfed it down. The mall existed now only because there was a Walmart where the old Sears anchor used to be, and some kids' fun center. Otherwise, nobody came there anymore. I finished my shift and the rest of my homework, then caught the bus before the 10 o'clock night schedule kicked in. The bus dropped me off, and I walked the last 2 blocks home. When I got inside, I felt relieved. It was strange how quickly I had started thinking of that place as home. Justin and Brent were in the kitchen eating pizza, so I joined them. "How was work, shoe boy?" Justin asked. "Sell some Skechers?" "Maybe 3 people all day, man. Must be a nice gig, though. You can mess around and do whatever on the clock. You know my drill." "Anyway, I think I'm gonna smoke outside." "Want to join?" Justin's whole mood changed immediately. "Nah, man, I don't like the backyard that much." He searched for an excuse. "Well," Brent jumped in, "I think it needs a pool, man." We all laughed, but Justin's reaction stuck with me. I went to my room to grab my stash. When I saw my camera on the floor, I figured some night photography would not hurt. I left my room and held up my bag at them as I walked toward the back deck. They both shrugged me off. "There's a lighter out there if you forgot yours," Brent called. "Don't steal it. I got you." I stepped onto the back deck. It was low, less than a foot off the ground, and stretched across the whole backside of the house. I had seen the yard from inside, but I had not really explored it yet. A slope led down towards something on the newly acquired part of the property, all enclosed by a fresh 10-foot fence. I stepped off the deck and into the backyard. The yard had not been landscaped or trimmed yet. Knee-high weeds brushed against my legs and slid under my shorts while I walked. I strolled around, looking at the house from a new angle, taking slow hits as I went. The new moon did not help. It was dark enough that I could barely make out the shape of the slope. I turned on my camera flash and took a picture. The weeds looked almost beautiful in the flash, moving like a wild green infection. Seeing growth there felt important somehow, like maybe the place could still have a future, like maybe something living could return to the burned land. Farther down, I saw bushes near one end, but I could not tell what they were. They looked uncontrolled, almost like an unnatural mixture of different plants. Not one species, but not many either. Something in between. I walked down the slope. It was about 15 yards long, with maybe a 5-foot drop. The side I came down was gradual, but the other side was much steeper. When I reached the middle, I looked down at my feet and realized what I was standing on. Smooth, round stones, like a dry creek bed. That was exactly what it was, or what it had been. It looked like an old creek had been graded when the neighborhood was developed. This property had once been home to one of the old homestead houses from the 1910s. When developers came through in the 80s, they took nature out layer by layer. They leveled the land, buried the creek, and forced it to serve runoff for the new residents. Centuries of native care for the land had been buried under concrete, fences, and houses. I followed the stone south. The dry creek bed ran along the edge of the property, parallel to the west fence, then continued toward the south fence. It was about as far from the house as you could get, while still being inside the property. As I walked, the stones rolled and clacked under my feet, fighting for position. Then I heard it. Scratch. The sound came from in front of me. That same sound. In the house. Under the street. Now in the backyard. I moved toward it slowly. A foot-long pipe came into view, exposed and corroded, jutting from the earth into the ditch like it was trying to escape. It had been there longer than I had been alive. Whoever made it was probably dead, but its purpose had remained. It felt like it held secrets I needed to know. The noise echoed from inside it. The rocks around me seemed to shudder with the sound. They had touched whatever lived in that system, and it did not want them to forget. I had to look. My curiosity was going to get me in trouble one day, and maybe this was that day. I had loved urban legends as a kid, and for a second, this felt like mine. My own mystery. My own secret place. I raised the camera toward the pipe opening and pressed the shutter. Click. What the hell? Roaches exploded in the flash. Hundreds of them. They were running in and out of the drain, their legs making thousands of tiny, sharp beats against the stone and metal. Their movement was like storm-blown sand. The ground changed in front of me, no longer mysterious, just disgusting and alive. Some had crawled onto my legs. My leg hair must have confused them with grass. I started jumping and shaking myself off. I may have let out a very unmanly sound, but no one was there to confirm it. I sprinted back toward the deck, shaking my body with every step, and collapsed into one of the chairs. For a few seconds, I sat there in disbelief. Then, I started laughing. The whole time, I thought I had been hearing something terrible. Some strange underground thing. But it was probably just hordes of field roaches that had moved in. That might also explain why I barely heard any other bugs. It was gross, but it was funny, too. I had scared myself with roaches. Unfortunately, I dropped my lighter and joint in the chaos. I did not feel like going back down there to look for them, so I grabbed another lighter from my stash on the deck and smoked while laughing at myself. After about 45 minutes outside, I went back in. Brent and Justin had disappeared somewhere. In the kitchen, Davis was eating from a pint of Ben & Jerry's. "Sup," he said, through a mouthful of ice cream. "Man," I said, "I didn't know how many roaches moved in." "Oh, you met them?" "Yeah, some shady construction company brought them in, I think." "Crazy. I've been hearing them through the whole neighborhood. They're worse in the old park," Davis said. "Man, they're even bad in my room. I hear them all night in the crawl space. Should I tell Justin about it?" Davis paused. He looked down into his ice cream, then back at me. "Yeah, no, what? Really? You think they'll go away, or?" "No," he said. "Not possible." I did not understand. "What do you mean? Like, not possible they could infest the house?" He took another big bite of ice cream. "Slab. What?" "The house is on a slab. No crawl space. All concrete." I just stared at him. He looked back down at his ice cream. For a few seconds, I said nothing. I replayed everything in my mind. The scratching in my room, under the floor, the way it moved, the way it seemed to settle when I did, like it knew where I was. I had been placing it somewhere I could understand. A crawl space, pipes, something physical below me. But Davis had just taken that explanation away. There was no below, just concrete. Then, earth. "So wait," I said. "What's that noise, then?" Davis shrugged with his mouth full and kept eating. I walked away and lay down on the couch. I turned on the TV, and ridiculousness blared into the room. I told myself it was the house. New construction finding its bond with old, scarred earth. Concrete settling. Pipes shifting. The house learning how to sit on land that had not wanted it there. That was the only explanation I had. I kept the TV loud enough so the noise would not matter either way. I woke up only once that night. It was underneath me. The scratching. The crunching. an unseen physical begging, like something wanted to be let in, or wanted me to dig down to it. Each scratch felt like a plea. Notice me. I fell back asleep on the couch. I told myself that if I did not think about it, then it was not there. That was my logic. That was all I had. In my high, tired state, I believed the sound had to vanish. In the morning, sunlight filled the room, warm and welcoming. For a while, I thought maybe my stone sleep had played tricks on me. So, I did what any responsible person would do. I smoked again. I went outside to the deck. My stash was still there from the night before. I lit up and walked to the edge, looking down toward the drainage creek where I had seen the roaches. In daylight, it did not look as creepy. I could see the whole shape of it now. I sat on the stairs and took a few hits. Then I looked down at my feet. On the first step, I saw my lighter. I froze. My lighter? I said out loud. I thought I dropped it last night. I picked it up. It had melted. The plastic was charred black and flaky. The little pickle design on it was gone, burned away. I stood and looked out toward the yard. That was when I saw the line. It started from where the lighter had been sitting. Not breadcrumbs, not dirt. Ash. I touched it with my fingers. It was still warm. Maybe it was just the rising sun heating it. Maybe it had smoldered recently. I could not tell. But the warmth felt strange, almost welcoming. The line was only an inch or two wide, gray-black, and darkly clear against the ground. It looked like something had burned straight across the earth. I followed it slowly, examining every inch. I tried to explain it. Maybe the joint I dropped had burned, and maybe I had dropped the lighter later than I remembered. Maybe the ash trail had nothing to do with me. But I knew I was lying to myself. I had no real idea what I was looking at. The trail led down to the dry creek bed, then to the drain. I stood there, staring at the exposed pipe. The metal looked different now. Freshly bent, just slightly, like something had forced it from inside. Not enough to be obvious from far away, but enough to make my stomach turn. The history of that old piece of metal had changed overnight. The ash trail went into the drain, somewhere deep inside, somewhere I was not going to go. I crouched and tried to look in, fighting the daylight to see through the darkness. Scuttle, scuttle. Something moved. It sounded like it was moving away from me. At least, I hoped it was. I stuck my head in just enough to hear the echoes retreating through the pipe system. Whatever it was, if it had eyes, it saw me. I backed away slowly and returned to the deck. Brent was there now, smoking. "Yo, man, I'll reimburse you, I swear," he said. He was smoking from my stash, but I did not care. I needed to ask him something. "Have you been over there?" He glanced toward the yard. "Nah, man, looks gross. I found an ash trail." He shrugged. "Yeah, some of the old ash blows around. I don't think there's any good way to get rid of that stuff anytime soon. It blows all over the place. Sometimes it settles on my windowsill in little piles." That did not explain the lighter, but I let it go for the moment. "Damn," I said. "That's how it is around here?" "Yeah, there are wild animals too sometimes. I see them move past my window at night. Only a blur, really. Saw a bunny once too. But if I were you, I wouldn't go outside much at night." "Why not?" Brent looked out toward the dead neighborhood. "This place is weird because it's so barren," he said. "I don't know if you've ever heard about people who lived on the plains back in the day, but they said they'd hear things in the wind. Drove some people insane. It's like that here. I went for a smoke walk one night, and in some rubble pile, I started hearing stuff like scratching. I cut in. No, he said. Kind of like spitting. It was weird, unnerving, like something was trying to bring up words, but they couldn't make it past the spit. I figured it was some choking junk rat, but I wasn't about to find out. That's something, I said. Weird, right? It freaked me out. I smoke sativa too, though, so maybe I was making stuff up. I never did good with horror movies. Can't stand them. He stood and looked at me. Just keep it low-key around here, especially around Justin. He seems on edge at night sometimes. That's why he won't smoke when it's dark. I think it's from when he lived here alone for a couple of weeks. Could be the 2 a.m. fire trauma, too. All those people died around here. I think one was a neighbor. I stared at him. A name came out of my mouth before I had time to think. Darlene. Brent looked at me, and his eyes widened. What? Who? Oh, wait, Darlene? No, not old Darlene. She's like the only other person here. Weird lady, but alive. Her niece is hot. Went to my high school. The neighbor was Megan B., I think. He took one last drag and put the smoke out in the tray. Anyway, see ya. Then he walked away and left me standing there with the conversation still hanging in the air. Megan B. I thought back to the memorial, the girl in the middle, the one about my age, the one whose name had faded so badly I could only see the first letter. Megan, she had been the closest death to me, closest in age, closest in place. I had never known her, and somehow that made it worse. There was something underneath all of this, something I still could not place. I stood there trying to connect everything into something reasonable. The scratching, the drain, the ash trail, the melted lighter, the black water from the shower. Darlene's warning about the ground moving at night. Brent's story about spitting sounds in the rubble. Justin being afraid of the backyard after dark. Megan B., dead in the fire, once living close to this place. I wanted it all to become normal if I thought about it hard enough. But the longer I thought, the more I felt like I was standing on top of something that had been waiting since the fire. And now, for some reason, it had noticed me. Story 2. I have never known what it feels like to have a lot of money. Some people talk about savings like it is a normal part of life. They talk about emergency funds, vacations, retirement accounts, and putting a little away every month. I have never really had that kind of life. For as long as I can remember, I have lived from one paycheck to the next, always trying to stretch money farther than it wanted to go. Rent, bills, groceries, gas, insurance, and the small problems that always seem to cost more than they should. That was my life. Anytime I managed to save even a little extra, something always happened. A tire would go bad. A medical bill would arrive. My car would start making a sound no car should make. A utility bill would jump for no reason. It always felt like the world waited until I had a small safety net, then reached down and ripped it away from me. After that, I would spend the next few months stressed and angry, checking my bank account over and over, terrified another hit was coming before I could recover. Eventually, the balance would climb just enough for me to breathe again. Not relax completely, never that, but enough to stop feeling like I was hanging over a cliff by my fingertips. Still, the fear was always there. Another expense was always waiting somewhere in the dark, ready to step out when I least expected it. I lived on a very thin line near poverty. I was not always falling, but I was always close. Somehow, though, I managed to get by. Until recently. Recently, I got hit by the kind of bad luck that people like me are always scared of. Two big expenses came one after another, close enough together that I did not have time to recover from the first before the second landed. One of them would have been bad enough. Both of them together destroyed me. My bank account, which had spent years hovering close to zero, finally crossed over. I was broke. Actually, I was worse than broke. I did not even have the comfort of an empty account. My balance was in the negative, and I had no clear idea how I was going to fix it. I stared at the number on my banking app like it was a sentence being handed down in court. I kept refreshing it, as if it might change if I looked at it enough. It did not. So when an opportunity appeared, I took it. I did not ask enough questions. I did not think long enough. I did not listen to the part of me that knew something was wrong. I just saw way out of the red, and I grabbed it. For a few months before everything happened, I had been donating plasma at the local blood bank. I already worked full-time, but it still was not enough to keep up. The plasma money helped a little. Not enough, but a little. And when you are desperate, a little can feel like something worth holding on to. The appointments were not terrible. I would sit there for about an hour with a needle in my arm while a machine pulled plasma from my blood. It was boring, sometimes uncomfortable, but I got paid at the end. And there was one part I actually looked forward to. Her name was Star. Star was the technician who usually handled my donations. She was around my age, maybe a little younger, with an easy smile and a way of talking that made the room feel less medical and more personal. She was pretty. I knew that from the first day. But as the weeks passed, I started liking more than just how she looked. She remembered details about my life. She asked about my job. She joked with me. She noticed when I was tired. For a while, I had a feeling she might have a thing for me. I tried not to believe it. I did not want to be one of those guys who mistakes basic kindness for flirting. She was working. She was paid to be friendly. That was what I told myself every time she smiled at me a little too long or laughed at one of my jokes a little too easily. I worked so hard to convince myself she was just being professional that I was genuinely surprised when she noticed my mood the first day I came in after my bank account went negative. I was sitting in the donation room with a needle in my arm, staring off into space. The machine hummed beside me. My mind was far away, trapped inside numbers, late fees, rent, and all the ways I could fail to catch up. After a long silence, Star spoke. "Are you feeling okay?" Her voice pulled me back into my body. I blinked and looked over at her. "What was that?" "I asked if you're feeling okay," she said. "You're usually more talkative than this. You don't feel faint, do you?" I was caught off guard by how concerned she sounded. Maybe it should not have mattered, but it did. She had noticed. Not just that I was quiet, but that I was quieter than usual. That small detail made me wonder again if I had been right about her liking me. Looking back now, I think that was the moment I let my guard down. "Sorry," I said with a weak smile. "My mind's just somewhere else today." "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked. Normally, I would not have. I do not like telling people about my money problems. There is shame in it, even when there should not be. But she looked so genuinely worried that I opened my mouth before I could stop myself. "I guess I'm just a little stressed about money," I said. "My bank account took a big hit the other day, and now I'm trying to figure out how I'm supposed to come back from it." I laughed once. but there was no humor in it. I wish I could donate plasma more than a couple times a week. That would actually make a difference. Star was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice had changed slightly. There was something playful in it, something secretive. "Well," she said, "maybe there's a way you can." I frowned. I don't see how. Unless I'm missing something, I'm pretty sure I'm already donating the most I'm allowed to each week. "Here, yes," she said. "But what if there was somewhere else?" I looked at her. "Somewhere else?" She glanced toward the door, then back at me. "Somewhere whose records would never cross with this place." I gave a small laugh because I thought she was joking. "That sounds too good to be true." "Maybe not," Star said. She seemed to think carefully before continuing. "Listen," she said. "I have a side job at another place. You can call it a private business. They take full blood donations, not just plasma, and they pay a lot more than this place does. If you want, you could come by and see if you're eligible." The words sounded wrong the second I heard them. "That sounds illegal," I said before I could stop myself. Star smiled. Not a big smile. A small one. The kind that made it seem like she knew exactly how bad the idea sounded and liked it anyway. "I wouldn't exactly call it above board," she said, "but it's pretty lucrative. The first donation pays $500. 500. The number hit me hard. $500 for one donation would almost get me out of the negative. It would not fix my whole life, but it would stop the bleeding, at least financially. It was the kind of money I had been desperate for. Still, it sounded shady. Worse than shady. It sounded dangerous. Was I really desperate enough to go to some hidden under-the-table donation center and risk my health for quick cash? Yes, I was. "I'm interested," I said. We exchanged numbers before I left that day. Later that night, Star called and gave me an address. We agreed to meet there in 3 days, on one of her days off from the blood bank. 3 days later, I drove to the address she had given me. The place did not look like a clinic. It was an old rectangular brick building with a faded, empty parking lot. If I had passed it any other day, I would have assumed it was abandoned. The sun was setting when I pulled in, and the sky was already turning deep violet. Long shadows stretched across the building, making it look even more forgotten than it probably did during the day. There was one door near the corner of the front wall. The rest of the front had one long, dirty window that looked like it had not been washed in years. Even if the glass had been clean, I would not have been able to see inside because a thick, off-white curtain covered it from within. I sat in my car for a minute, staring at the building. Everything in me said this was a bad idea. But then I thought about my bank balance. I thought about $500. I got out of the car. The air felt cooler than it should have. I walked toward the door, hesitated for only a second, then opened it and stepped inside. The interior was not what I expected. I had pictured dust, graffiti, broken lights, maybe old medical equipment lying around like something from a horror movie. Instead, I found myself in a clean, old-fashioned waiting room. It was outdated, definitely, but tidy. Several empty chairs lined the walls. A worn coffee table sat in the middle of the room with neatly stacked magazines on it. In one corner, an old tube TV hung from a wall bracket. It was on mute, showing some old program with the picture cropped strangely, like modern TV had left it behind years ago. Star stood behind the reception desk. She was looking at her phone, but when she saw me, she put it down and smiled. "Hey," she said. I'm glad you made it. I'm glad to be here, I said, awkwardly. That was not completely true. I was nervous, but seeing her helped. The strange waiting room, the old building, the whole risky setup, all of it seemed less frightening with Star standing there. If anything, being alone with her in that empty place felt strangely intimate. She came around from behind the desk. If you're ready, come this way. She led me down a hallway on the far side of the waiting room. I walked beside her, trying to sound normal. Don't I need to fill out paperwork or anything? Star let out a small laugh. No, she said. We don't really worry about stuff like that here. That should have been enough warning for me to leave. But it was not. I told myself no paperwork was good. It meant the whole thing would be fast. I could get in, get paid, and get out. And honestly, that was exactly what happened. Star led me into a patient room that looked much newer than the waiting room. The chair was clean. The equipment looked proper. She helped me sit down and prepared my arm the same way she always did at the blood bank. Within minutes, the needle was in, the tube was connected, and my blood was flowing into a bag. It was faster than plasma donation. Much faster. They did not even fill a quarter of the bag. Star and I talked like usual while it happened, and before I could get too nervous, it was over. 10 minutes later, I was back in the waiting room with a small stack of 20s in my hand. I did not count it there because I did not want to seem rude, but when I got to my car, I checked. $500. All of it. That was it? I asked before leaving. That was it, Star said. Pretty easy, huh? Extremely easy, I said. Then, before I could stop myself, I asked, when can I do this again? Star's smile widened slightly. I have to talk to my boss, she said. I'll call you and tell you what he says. If things go well, you can expect to start making weekly donations here very soon, and you'll be making a lot more money while doing it. Something about the way she said that unsettled me. But the money in my hand made the feeling easy to ignore. Star called me exactly 1 week later. I was excited to hear from her, partly because I had missed talking to her, and partly because I needed money again. The $500, along with my regular plasma donation money, had helped pull me out of the negative, but I was still barely above zero. One bad day could throw me right back into trouble. She asked if I could come in that evening for another donation. I already had plans, but I figured I could push them back. Money mattered more. When I arrived, the same routine happened. Old parking lot, empty waiting room, Star behind the desk, hallway, patient room, needle, blood bag. This time, though, Star told me I would be getting $1,000. I stared at her. 1,000? I told you that you could start making a lot more money doing this, she said playfully. I didn't think you meant that much more. I thought it would be a nice surprise, she said. Same time next week? I nodded quickly. The next week, she called again, and I went in just like before. I was a little disappointed when the payment stayed at $1,000 instead of increasing again, which was ridiculous. $1,000 for a small amount of blood was more than I could have ever expected. It was incredible money for almost no effort. For the first time in my life, I was not just catching up. I was getting ahead. I knew I should be grateful. I knew I should not ask too many questions. I did not know how long the arrangement would last, and I wanted to take advantage of it while I could. Then, the following week came, and everything changed. Star called to confirm that I would be coming in at the usual time. I arrived like always. She was behind the reception desk, smiling like nothing was different. She led me down the hall to the patient room. I expected the same thing. But when we stepped inside, someone was already sitting in my usual chair. A woman looked up and smiled at me. She was older than Star, though it was hard to guess by how much. She could have been 5 years older than me, or 15. Her age seemed difficult to pin down. What was easy to see was that she was beautiful. Not just pretty, but beautiful in a polished, almost unreal way. Her smile was warm and soft. Her posture was perfect. Her eyes made it hard to look away. "This is Dr. Bell," Star said, closing the door behind us. The woman rose to her feet. "And you must be the young man Star has told me about," she said. Her voice was smooth and gentle, almost musical. "The one who has been so generous with his blood donations lately." "I'm glad to help," I said awkwardly. I did not mention that my main reasons for donating were money and Star. The moment I saw Dr. Bell, I started forgetting about one of those reasons. "You're probably wondering why I'm here, Doctor," Bell said. "I admit I'm curious. Then I'll just say it," she said. "The blood you've been donating these past weeks has been going directly to me." That surprised me. "Directly to you?" I asked. "Why do you need my blood?" "To live, of course," she said, still smiling. "After Star brought me your first sample, I knew your blood was a perfect fit for me, so I simply had to have more." Her answer should have made me uncomfortable. It did, in a distant way. But standing near her, hearing that soft voice, looking into that calm face, the discomfort felt far away, like it was behind a door. "Well," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I'm glad you think so highly of me." "Of your blood, specifically," she said with a playful tone. "But now that I've met the donor, I believe my opinion of him may soon match my opinion of what he has given me." I stood there smiling like an idiot. After a few seconds, I asked, "So are you here to help with the donation today?" "Oh, no, Doctor," Bell said with a small laugh. "That is what I have Star for. I'm here to make a strange request." "What kind of request?" "I was hoping you might be willing to give me your blood directly today." I frowned. "Directly?" "Yes," she said, "as in through a direct transfusion from you to me." "Oh," I said, "I didn't know people still did that." "You don't see it much in modern medicine anymore," Dr. Bell said. "Most transfusions are done with pre-collected blood bags, but I tend to be a bit of an experimenter. I believe I may gain more benefit from your blood if I receive it while it is at its freshest, directly from you." She let the words sit there for a moment. "You are free to say no," she added, "but I am willing to pay $3,000 for this donation." 3,000. The number shocked me. Looking back, I wish I could say I struggled more with the choice. I wish I had asked more questions. But the truth is, she probably could have asked me to pay her for the privilege of giving her my blood, and at that moment, I might still have said yes. A few minutes later, Dr. Bell and I were sitting on opposite sides of a blood bag. I sat in my usual chair. Star had brought another chair from the waiting room for Dr. Bell. Tubes connected us both. The setup felt strange, but Star moved with confidence, and Dr. Bell stayed quiet and calm. The transfusion began. Star and I talked like we usually did, though I was more aware than ever of the woman sitting across from me. Dr. Bell did not speak much. She watched the bag, then watched me, her eyes warm and patient. When it was over, Star removed the needles. "Doctor," Bell stood and handed me a thick brown envelope. "Thank you again," she said, "and thank you for indulging my strange request." "Not a problem," I said. "Hopefully I'll see you again soon." "Oh," she said, smiling, "I'm sure you will." Star led me back to the lobby. Near the exit, she turned to me. "Same time next week?" "Yeah," I said, eagerly. "See you then." I left the clinic with $3,000 in my hand. At first, I felt good. Better than good. I felt like I had found the secret door out of my old life. But as the days passed, that meeting with Dr. Bell started to bother me more and more. There was nothing obvious I could point to at first. She and Star had both been kind. The place was clean. I had gotten paid. But the whole thing felt wrong in a way I could not shake. By the 6th day, I had almost convinced myself I was done. No more private clinic. No more strange requests. No more Dr. Bell. I would miss the money. But there was a voice in the back of my head telling me to stop while I still could. That voice was loud for days. Then Star called to confirm my appointment, and the voice went silent. By the time I walked into the clinic, it was like I had never planned to quit at all. But the warning returned the moment I heard Dr. Bell's next request. "You want to suck the blood straight from the bag?" I asked. Just saying the words made me feel lightheaded. I thought I had misunderstood. I waited for her to smile and explain that she meant something else. She did not. "Yes, Doctor," Bell said. "Think of it as another experiment. I know it sounds strange, and you are free to say no. But I believe $10,000 may convince you to see things my way." 10,000. The room seemed to tilt around me. That amount of money felt unreal. Unreachable. $10,000 could change everything for me. It could give me breathing room. Real breathing room. The kind I had never had. And beyond the money, I found I did not want to disappoint her. So I agreed. Star hooked me up to the blood bag while Dr. Bell stood nearby. At first, everything seemed normal. Star started talking to me, and I answered like usual. The tube filled red. The bottom of the bag began to collect my blood. Then Dr. Bell stepped forward. She leaned toward the bag. I expected her to open one of the ports, maybe cut it with a small tool. Something medical. Something controlled. Instead, she bit directly into the bag. Her teeth sank through the plastic easily. Then she started drinking. I stopped talking in the middle of a sentence. The sound was horrible. Wet, messy, greedy. She sucked at the bag in thick pulls, her lips sealed around the torn plastic. My blood disappeared into her mouth, while the tube kept feeding more into the bag. I looked at Star. She saw my face. She had to. But she ignored it. Instead, she picked up the conversation where I had stopped, like nothing unusual was happening. And for some reason, I felt like I had to keep talking. So I did. I forced words out. I nodded. I answered questions. All while Dr. Bell drank my blood from the bag beside me. When she finally pulled away, her lips and chin were stained red. Blood marked the skin around her mouth. She licked her lips once with a narrow tongue and smiled. "Thank you," she said. "I think that will do for now." I smiled back because I did not know what else to do. Star handed me the envelope in the waiting room. I said a short goodbye, then got out of there as quickly as I could. In my car, I placed the envelope on the passenger seat and drove home in silence. The envelope seemed to stare at me the whole way. Every time I glanced at it, I heard Dr. Bell sucking and slurping from the blood bag. I kept telling myself I was never going back. Never again. No amount of money was worth that. Then I got home and opened the envelope. $10,000. That night, I went to bed confused afraid, and tempted. I knew the arrangement was wrong. I could not pretend anymore that it was just a harmless side job. But the money was real. The opportunity was real. For once, I had power over my financial life. I had cash on hand. I was not drowning. I fell asleep while that argument raged inside my head. Then, I had a nightmare. In the dream, I was back in the clinic chair. My arm was connected to a tube, and the tube led to a blood bag already filling with red. Dr. Bell stood on the other side of it, smiling that calm, beautiful smile. At first, seeing her made the fear settle a little. Then she shoved her face into the bag and began to drink. She sucked violently, making wet, awful sounds. The bag filled and emptied at the same time, my blood rushing into it as fast as she could swallow. Then, the bag ran dry. But she did not stop. She sucked the empty bag into her mouth. Then she moved along the tube. I tried to stand. I tried to pull the needle from my arm, but it would not come free. Dr. Bell's mouth traveled closer and closer along the tube until it reached my arm. Then she began sucking me in. First my arm, then my shoulder, then my head, my chest, my stomach, my legs. She swallowed my entire body. After that, I floated in an endless red ocean for what felt like thousands of years. There was no sky, no ground, no sound, only red. Then even that swallowed me. I woke in the middle of the night, covered in cold sweat. My sheets were damp. My heart was racing. I sat upright, gasping, trying to remind myself I was in my own apartment. After a while, I calmed down. Then exhaustion hit me hard, and I fell back asleep. The last thought I remember having was clear and certain. I will never go back. For the next week, I believed that. I truly did. I told myself I was finished with the old clinic, finished with Star, finished with Dr. Bell. I even avoided the regular blood bank because the thought of needles made me sick. Then, Star called. I thought about ignoring it, but I decided I should at least answer and tell her I was done. I owed her that much, I thought. So I picked up after the third ring. We exchanged the usual greetings. I tried to sound normal, but I am sure she heard the discomfort in my voice. I was about to tell her I did not want to continue when she spoke first. "Hey," she said, "I just wanted to apologize for last week. Dr. Bell is really embarrassed about what happened." I hesitated. "Yeah," I said. "It was kind of weird. I think it's important that you understand why she wanted to try that," Star said. "Dr. Bell might not look it, but she's sick. Very sick. She needs regular blood transfusions just to stay alive. Things have been getting worse for her lately, and her usual treatments haven't been working." I frowned, even though she could not see me. That's horrible. When it comes to medicine, Dr. Bell has always been willing to try less conventional methods when she's backed into a corner, Star said. And lately, her whole life has felt like one big corner. She got it into her head that consuming blood by mouth might help more than taking it through a transfusion. After you left, she realized how foolish that sounded. "I don't know if foolish is the word I'd use," I said. Either way, Star continued, she wanted me to ask if you'd be willing to come back one last time tonight. For one more experiment. I nearly groaned. "Star, I don't know. She's willing to pay you $50,000. The words stopped me completely. For several seconds, I said nothing. "What?" I finally managed. $50,000, Star said, "for one last donation tonight. Are you in?" My answer came before I could think. I'm in. Great, she said. See you tonight. Then she hung up. The rest of the day moved strangely. Some parts dragged forever. Other parts disappeared in a blink. By evening, I was driving to the clinic in silence. I did not turn on music. I did not call anyone. I only listened to the hum of the road and the rush of my own blood in my ears. I was terrified, but I was also excited. $50,000. I could pay off debts. I could build a savings account. I could fix my car before it broke. I could stop living in constant fear for the first time in years. Whatever happened in that clinic, I knew it would change my life. One way or another, I would not be the same man when I walked back out. I arrived at the usual time, just as the sun was sinking. Star was behind the front desk, smiling like always. We greeted each other quickly, then headed down the hallway. Thanks for coming, she said. Dr. Bell really appreciates it. She drives a hard bargain, I joked, trying to hide how nervous I was. I failed. She wants to drink from the blood bag one last time, Star said. Same as last week. After that, you get your money and you can leave. I did not answer. We entered the patient room. Dr. Bell was sitting in my usual chair, smiling beautifully. She stood when I came in. I was sure I scared you off last week, she said. Not quite yet, I replied, forcing another weak joke. I'm sure Star told you I would like to try the same thing one more time, if that's all right with you. I nodded. Yeah, that's fine. Excellent, Dr. Bell said. Then let's begin. I'm sure you want this over with. I sat down in the chair. The blood bag was already on its stand beside me. Star stepped forward to hook me up. Then Dr. Bell spoke. Actually, hold on. Star stopped. We both looked at her. Doctor? Bell smiled calmly. Hooking him up to all that equipment won't be necessary, she said. I've decided I want to do this the natural way. Star's face went pale. But Dr. Bell, you can't. I wasn't asking for your opinion, Doctor, Bell said. Her voice was still smooth, but something hard lived beneath it. Star immediately went quiet. She stepped back from the empty blood bag and looked down at the floor. I looked at Dr. Bell. What do you mean? I asked. What's the natural way? What I mean, she said, is that I want to drink directly from your body. She paused. More specifically, from your neck. For several seconds, I could not speak. My neck? I finally said. Why would you want to do that? Because I need your blood as close to the source as possible, she said. If I want the full benefit, there is no better place than the base of your neck. I don't know, I said quickly. Can't we just use the bag like last time? This sounds very $100,000, she said. The number silenced me. What? You heard me, Doctor, Bell said. $100,000 to let me drink directly from your neck right now. I won't need more than 2 minutes. When I'm done, the money is yours. I could not move. I looked at Star, hoping she would say something, hoping she would shake her head, hoping she would give me one sign that I should run. She stared at the floor. Dr. Bell watched me patiently. Or, she said, you can leave now, and we will never see each other again. The choice is yours. I sat there with the weight of the offer pressing down on me. $100,000. That was not catching up. That was not breathing room. That was a new life. I could not imagine having that much money. I could not imagine turning it down. If I walked away, I knew I would regret it forever. All right, I said. Let's do it. Dr. Bell smiled. For the first time, her beauty looked different. It was still there, but something wicked had stepped out from behind it. "Excellent," she said. "Let us do this now, and then we'll get you on your way. Your new life is waiting for you after all." She approached my chair. Something about the way she moved made fear bloom inside me. Her steps were smooth and cold, not slow exactly, but controlled in a way that did not seem human. I wanted to call it off. I wanted to stand up and leave, but I could not move. She leaned over me, her hair falling around her face and brushing near my cheek. Her mouth came closer to my neck. "Aren't you going to make an incision or something?" I whispered. Dr. Bell stopped just above my collarbone. Then she laughed softly. The sound seemed to vibrate through the whole room. "No need." She opened her mouth. Her teeth were sharp, slender, too long. Then she bit into my neck. My entire world became pain. It was not just sharp pain. It was cold and hot at the same time, like ice and fire had been poured directly into my veins. The agony spread from my neck through my entire body in one violent wave. I twisted in the chair. I tried to pull away, but her mouth was locked onto me. I tried to stand. She placed one hand on my chest. Her fingers barely touched me, light as insect legs on water, but I could not move against them. She held me in place with impossible strength while she drank. I looked toward Star, begging with my eyes. She stood in the doorway, staring at her own feet. Shadows began to move along the walls, not normal shadows, dense, wild shapes that spun and stretched as if something huge was moving just outside the room's light. My chair shook beneath me, maybe from my body convulsing, maybe from whatever Dr. Bell was doing. My vision darkened. Even through the darkness, I saw things. Flashes, images, torture, blood faces twisted in terror, bodies hanging in rooms with no doors, a red sky over a city of bones. Dr. Bell standing young and beautiful in every image, always smiling, always feeding. Each scene hit me like the flash from an old camera. Then everything went still. I woke the next morning in my own apartment. I was in bed. My body ached badly, and my mind felt bruised. A dull pulse throbbed at the base of my neck with every heartbeat. For almost half an hour, I could not make myself get up. When I finally did, the room spun so violently that I nearly fell. For a moment, I tried to tell myself it had been a dream. That thought died quickly. It had been too real. I remembered her teeth. I remembered the pain. I remembered the feeling of my blood leaving my body. I remembered Star staring at the floor. Then I saw the small metal case on my desk. I knew what was inside before I opened it. Stacks of cash. $100,000. Dr. Bell had kept her promise. I tried calling Star several times after that. Her number was disconnected. I thought about going back to the clinic, but I could not bring myself to do it. If I did, I am sure I would find the building empty and abandoned, just like it looked from the outside before Star and Dr. Bell made it seem alive. There was no trace of them except the case of money on my desk. For a short while, I told myself it was over. Dr. Bell had paid me. She was gone. Star was gone. The clinic was gone. I did not need to explain what happened because I never had to deal with it again. I had the money. I could move on. But I was wrong. The first change came when I opened my bedroom blinds. Sunlight hit my face, and I nearly collapsed. My skin burned instantly. My stomach twisted. My vision went white at the edges, and for a moment I thought I was going to pass out. I stumbled back, shut the blinds, and stood in the dark with my heart racing. Since then, it has only gotten worse. I cannot go outside during the day anymore. Even a few seconds of sunlight makes me nauseous and weak. I have to wait until dark to leave my apartment. But at night, the world looks different now. Brighter, sharper, more alive. I can see things in darkness that I never could before. My stomach growls all the time. But I cannot eat. Food makes me sick. Bread, meat, fruit, soup, coffee, anything. I try to force it down, but my body rejects it. My hunger is still there, stronger than anything I have ever felt, but it does not want food. It wants something else. Something dark. Something warm. Something red. I have tried to ignore the craving. I have tried to push it away. But the longer I go without it, the louder it gets. It sits inside me, like an animal pacing behind a locked door. Every pulse I hear from people passing in the hallway makes my mouth water. Every time someone cuts themselves in a video, my hands start shaking. I can hear blood now. I know that sounds impossible, but I can. That is why I am telling this story. The hunger is growing worse by the minute. Every letter I type feels like another day without what I need. I am sitting here in my bedroom with the blinds pulled tight, the lights off, and that small fortune still sitting untouched on my desk. There were so many things I once wanted to spend that money on. Bills, debt, repairs, a better apartment, a future. But now, all of that feels distant and unimportant. There is only one thing I need now. So I have one simple question for anyone reading this. How much would I have to pay you for a few drops of your blood? Story 3. My mother was the one who first called me Noname. She sent it to me in a text a few days after I told her I was going to move forward with top surgery. I think, in her own strange and old-fashioned way, she was trying to be supportive. It did not feel perfect. It did not even feel kind at first. But compared to the fights we had been having for the last 3 years, it was almost gentle. So I guess I won't get to call you Gavin anymore, she wrote. What do I call you then? Naname? I stared at that message for a long time. Right before it, I had sent her a huge wall of text. I had explained everything again. Why that old name did not feel right. Why hearing it made something inside me tighten. Why I wanted to move forward. Why this surgery mattered to me. Why I was tired of living in a body that felt like it belonged to someone else. After all that, her answer was short, sarcastic, and a little clumsy. But there was also something like acceptance hiding inside it. I decided not to fight her about it. I was too tired to fight. For once, she had not called me confused. She had not told me I was ruining my life. She had not begged me to wait another year, pray about it, see another therapist, or stop listening to those people online. She had made a joke, yes, but it was not cruel enough for me to break down over. So I let it go. My partner, River, told me it was just the first step. River always had a way of making things sound bigger than they were. They believed in signs, energy, timing, and the idea that speaking something out loud gave it power. Sometimes it annoyed me, but sometimes I needed it. We've been dancing around this too long, River said one night while we were lying in bed. Once you put it out there, it's like you're making a promise to yourself. You're telling the universe this is what you're going to do. Manifesting, I think that's what people call it. I laughed at that, but I also wanted to believe it. So on June 1st, the first day of Pride Month, I started a GoFundMe. I told myself it was brave. I told myself it was time. I told myself I was done hiding in the doorway of my own life, waiting for permission to step through. But when I sat there with my laptop open, trying to write the description, my hands would not stop shaking. The page asked for my name. That was where everything became complicated. I had not changed anything on my Facebook profile yet. The fundraiser had to connect to it, and I still had not made my new name official. I did not even feel ready to type it where people could see it. River said manifestation made things real, but I felt the opposite about my real name. I did not want to speak it publicly until I felt like it truly belonged to me. So when I posted the fundraiser, the heading came out as Donate to help No Name get his top surgery. River stared at the screen and sighed. When are you ever going to fill that in? They asked. I can't until it's official, I said. Like you said, putting something out there makes it real. I don't want to speak my real name until it feels like mine. River looked like they wanted to argue, but they did not. They only squeezed my shoulder and told me they were proud of me. Posting it was one of the hardest things I had ever done. Most of my friends in real life were not fully on board with my transition. Some tried to be supportive, but acted uncomfortable anytime I brought it up. Some avoided the topic completely. Some had already blocked me after I started talking more openly about who I was. People love to say they accept you, until acceptance requires them to change how they see you. The fundraiser made things clear very quickly. By the end of the first week, around 30 more people had shown me who they really were. Some unfriended me quietly. Some sent messages that started with "I love you," and ended with something that did not feel like love at all. A few people donated. A few shared the link. River shared it everywhere. My mother did not share it, but she did not tell me to take it down either. And at that point, I counted that as something. By the end of the week, I had raised about $250. I know I should have been grateful. I was grateful, in a way. That was more support than I expected from some people. But my insurance had decided the surgery was cosmetic, and the down payment they wanted from me was $8,000. $8,000. I checked again and again, hoping I had misunderstood. I asked if a recommendation from my counselor would help. He knew better than anyone what I had been going through. He had written letters, documented my dysphoria, and supported my decision. But none of that moved the number. $8,000 stood between me and the body I had been trying to reach for years. By the second week, GoFundMe started sending emails asking if I wanted to keep waiting for donations. Those emails broke me more than I expected. It felt like even the website knew I was failing. One night, without thinking it through, I shut the fundraiser down. When the small amount of money came through, I withdrew it and took myself to the nearest bar. I told myself I was only going for one drink. That was a lie. By the time I was several shots in, my phone was face down on the bar, my chest felt hollow, and the world had that blurry, warm edge that almost made sadness feel distant. Here's to manifesting destiny, I slurred, lifting my glass toward the bartender. I do not know if it was my second shot or my 13th. At that point, I did not care. Rough night? A voice asked from my left. Somebody die? I turned. The person beside me was wearing the brightest outfit in the bar. A red bra sat over a blue and silver top that looked like something between armor and clubwear. Their ripped jeans were covered in stars, strings, glitter, and bits of metallic fabric. On the back of their outfit, there was one torn black wing on the left side and what looked like a devil's tail hanging near their belt on the right. For a second, I thought they did not look human. Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe it was the light. Maybe it was the fact that they smiled like they knew exactly what I was thinking. "What are you supposed to be?" I asked. "A demiurge or something?" "Or something," they said. "But you should probably be nicer to the person who just paid for your next 5 rounds." They moved closer. Their breath smelled like whiskey and blood. "Or am I misreading the room?" they added, glancing at my own colorful outfit. "I have a partner," I said quickly. "Don't see them in here drinking your worries away with you," the stranger said. "Let me guess. They're the sensible one, right? And you know better. You know things aren't going to get better just because someone tells you to be patient." I hated how close that hit. "I was supposed to get surgery," I said, looking down at what I was wearing. The black push-up bra suddenly felt like a cruel joke. Make it official, I guess. But that ship sailed. I don't even have a quarter of what I need, so I might as well spend what I got on something else tonight. The stranger nodded slowly, like I had said exactly what they expected. "I get you," they said, "but maybe you're giving up too fast. Have you ever thought about alternatives?" The music seemed to get louder right then, and I leaned closer. "What do you mean?" They shrugged. "Everyone thinks they have to go through the professional route. Hospitals, insurance, waiting lists, letters, big payments. It's a scam if you ask me." I gave a bitter laugh. "Well, I don't exactly want to get surgery in a back alley." "Why not?" they asked too quickly. I stared at them. They smiled wider. "Listen, maybe you like sitting here and drowning in self-pity, but deep down you know you'd do anything to make your real life start." Then they slid a card across the bar. It had only a phone number on it. "A friend of mine used them not long ago," they said. "Cost maybe 1,000 at most. Very reasonable. Life-changing." I looked at the card, then back at the stranger. "Why give this to me? You don't even know me." Their smile faded slightly. "Because I used to be just like you," they said, "sitting in a bar trying to drink away the part of myself I couldn't escape." Then they winked and disappeared into the dancing crowd. I should have thrown the card away. I knew that. Even drunk, I knew River would tell me it was a terrible idea. A dangerous idea. The kind of decision people make when they are desperate enough to mistake danger for hope. But that was the problem. I was desperate. I stood outside the bar with the card in my shaking hand. The cold night air made me feel a little more sober, but not wiser. I stared at the number until it blurred. Then I called. A rough voice answered. "I can only put down 400, I said. "Is that enough for an appointment?" There was a pause. Then the voice gave me an address and told me to be there the next evening at 6. The next day felt unreal. I must have come home drunk and passed out, because the first thing I remember clearly is River asking if I was okay while I paced around the apartment, trying to convince myself to go through with it. "You okay?" they asked. "It's nothing," I said. That was the worst lie I had ever told them. Before River could ask anything else, I left. The address was halfway across town near the waterfront. I ordered an Uber because I did not want to drive my own car somewhere that felt this dangerous. I did not want my license plate there. I did not want to be trapped if something went wrong. The whole area looked abandoned, full of dark warehouses, broken fences, and empty lots. When I got out of the Uber, I immediately reached for my keys and held them between my fingers like a weapon. About 10 minutes later, an unmarked van pulled up. A black man rolled down the window. "You here for the doc?" he asked. I hesitated. He looked bored, like he had done this before. I nodded and tried to offer the money, but he shook his head. "Just get in." There was something covered in the back of the van. I sat near it because there was nowhere else to sit. It was long and narrow under a sheet, and from the shape, I could not stop thinking it looked like a body from a morgue. "What is that?" I asked. The man only said, "Buckle up." We drove away from the waterfront and out of town. I tried to keep track of where we were going, but after a while, the roads blurred together. When we finally stopped, two men opened the back doors and lifted out the covered shape at my feet. Then they told me to follow them inside. The building looked dead from the outside. Inside, it looked like a surgery room, not a real hospital surgery room. Not clean enough, not bright enough, not comforting enough. But there were gurneys, metal trays, machines, tubes, and equipment I recognized only vaguely from medical shows and bad dreams. A man in a white mask stood near one of the tables. I guessed he was the doctor. He started asking basic questions about my health history, while the others told me to remove my clothes. I felt my body go cold, but I did what they said. I kept telling myself I could still leave. I kept telling myself I had chosen this. "What happens next?" I asked as they laid me on a stretcher. I was right beside the covered body. The doctor pulled the sheet away. The thing underneath made my stomach turn. It looked like a mannequin made of flesh. A blank human-shaped body lay on the table. It had no real features. No face, no identity, no marks, no hair, no personhood. Just smooth, pale skin over a body waiting to become something. It looked alive and dead at the same time, like a body grown in a place where souls were not allowed. "What is that?" I whispered. The doctor handed me a form. "You need to fill out what you want your new self to look like." I stared at him. "What do you mean?" He pointed at the blank body. "That is the canvas. You tell us what you want, and we make it." I looked from the form to the body and then to him. I had thought this was going to be a legal surgery. Dangerous, yes, maybe unsanitary, maybe something I would regret. But this was not surgery in any normal sense. This was something else. Something impossible. "Relax," the doctor said. "This is what you wanted, isn't it? To become your true self? No need to be afraid. No need to be afraid." That was exactly the kind of thing someone says when there's every reason to be afraid. My breathing became shallow. The walls seemed too close. The blank body beside me looked like it was waiting. "I can't," I stammered. "I'm not sure I'm ready. Can I call this off?" The doctor looked at me carefully. I had seen that look many times before. Pity, the kind people gave when they thought they understood my pain better than I did. The kind that made me feel small. "Please don't kill me," I whispered. The men nearby looked at each other and laughed. The doctor pulled his mask down. His smile was strangely friendly. "We are not your enemy," he said. "The only thing you have to do is get out of your own head." He pointed toward the door. "You can leave. That is allowed. But this is a one-time offer. What we do here is not legal, as you can imagine. We cannot have people trying to find us again. If you walk away, we will never answer another call from you." It will be as if this never happened. My fingers were damp as I held the pen. The form looked so normal. Height, weight, gender, hair color, eye color, Scars, voice, body type, special requests. It should have been absurd. It should have made me laugh. Instead, I knew, somehow, that it was real. What are the side effects? I asked. What will happen to me? The doctor folded his hands. I could explain the process, but it would involve a lot of scientific language you do not need. The simple answer is this. The body you are in now will no longer be your cage. Once we make the changes to your new skin, your consciousness will be transferred into the new host. He gestured at the blank body. As for side effects, those unpleasant things will happen to the old body. Nothing you need to worry about. I stared at him. What happens to my old body? The doctor smiled. Who cares? You are paying for a blank slate. That is what you get. At long last, you can stop being Nana May. That name hit me harder than it should have. Nana May. I thought of my mother teasing me through text. I thought of school when teachers used my old name during roll call and I refused to answer. I thought of all the times I had looked in mirrors and felt like I was standing behind someone else's face. I looked down at the form. Then I wrote Blue Eyes. After that, I kept writing. Half an hour later, I was strapped down beside the empty body while the doctor prepared an IV. A nurse stood near me. She looked around my age, maybe a little older. Her face was calm, but not cruel. Nervous? She asked. I nodded. How many times have you done this? I asked. Instead of answering, she placed a mask over my face and told me to count backward from 100. I think I made it to 92 before the dream began. I was standing naked in a pool of dark water. It reached my knees, and the surface was so still it looked like black glass. Below me, my reflection stared back. But it was not me. It was the blank body. Every movement I made, it copied. I raised my hand, and it raised its hand. I stepped back, and it stepped back. I tried to run, but the water dragged at my legs. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out. Then I noticed the colorless skin rising up my legs. It started at my feet, smooth and pale, spreading over me like wet paint. I clawed at it, but it kept moving. Up my legs, across my stomach, over my chest, around my neck. Then it covered my mouth. The world went dark. But I was still standing. Now I was the blank body. Below me, my old body drifted away in the reflection. It floated across the pool until it reached the far side. Then it stood there, staring at me with empty eyes. It raised one finger. Its mouth opened. A high-pitched scream tore through the dark. I woke up shaking. Machines were beeping. Nurses were shouting. The doctor was yelling for someone to keep me sedated. I turned my head and saw my old body lying across the room. Its dead eyes were open. They were accusing me. It shook when I shook, like we were still connected by invisible strings. My lungs felt filled with electricity and acid. Black blood poured from my old mouth as one arm reached toward me. Then the doctor shouted again, and darkness took me. The next time I woke, I heard a heart monitor and a television. My vision was blurry. My whole body felt sore in a deep, strange way. The Weather Channel was playing on the TV, and from the date on the screen, I realized I had been unconscious for 3 days. A nurse noticed my eyes open. "Thank the Lord," she said. "You're awake." She asked if I was in pain. She asked if I needed anything. Then she said an officer would come by later to take a statement and asked me to try to remember any details. I looked at the chart near the bed. The name written there was Jane Doe. Jane Doe. They did not know who I was. For a second, that terrified me. Then I realized something else. Jane, I asked the nurse if she had a phone with a camera or mirror. She handed me one. I saw my face, my new face. My breath caught in my throat. Every detail was exactly what I had written. Every cut, every shape, every line. My eyes were blue. My skin was smooth. My body felt strange, unfamiliar, sore, and perfect, all at once. I was finally myself. I wanted to cry, but I did not have the strength. "Is there someone we can call?" the nurse asked. I gave her River's information. The police came first. 2 officers asked me where I had been, who had done this, and why I had been found near a shelter with no identification, no fingerprints, and nothing on me. The nurse told them there were no drugs in my system either. "She's a blank slate," the nurse said. Those words made my stomach twist. I told the officers I did not remember what happened. That was only partly a lie. I remembered the surgery room, the doctor, the body, the dream, and my old self reaching for me. But how could I explain that to police? Then River arrived. They opened the door, took one look at me, and froze. "I'm sorry," they said. "I think I'm in the wrong room." I sat up, ignoring the pain. Then I told them my name, my real name. River stared at me for a long time. "Really?" they whispered. "That's you? This is you?" I smiled, holding back tears. "I wanted to surprise you." River closed the door behind them and covered their mouth. "This is a miracle," they said. "There are barely any scars. I don't even recognize you. How did you do this? Does it matter?" I asked. Their expression changed. They looked at my hands and noticed what the police had noticed. No fingerprints. River stepped back. "How do I know you are who you say you are?" they asked. "Tell me something only you would know." I almost laughed, even though I understood why they were scared. "You have a mole on your left inner thigh that looks like Mickey Mouse." River's face went pale. "Dear God," they whispered. "This is real." They came to the bed and touched my face. Then they held me. We stayed like that for hours while nurses came and went. The nurses kept asking questions. They also mentioned something strange about my blood work. My immune system was so clean, it was almost like a newborn baby's. "We'll need to vaccinate you to be safe," one of them said. I told them that was fine. While she explained possible effects, my attention drifted to the television. There was a news report about a fire downtown. Several unidentified bodies had been found inside a warehouse. When footage of the building appeared, I recognized it. It was the place where the surgery had happened. River turned up the volume. The reporter said the fire may have been caused by one individual. Witnesses had provided a sketch for police. The image appeared on the screen. My face went cold. It was my old face. River looked at it too, and their expression twisted. The nurse noticed. "Do you know this person?" River answered before I could. "No," they said quickly. "Just someone we used to know." Strange resemblance. The nurse left to get the vaccines. River turned to me. "Enough lies. Who are you really?" "I'm not lying," I said. "That person on the screen is my old body." They stared. I tried to explain quickly. "The doctor. The blank body. The transfer. How they said I would not need to worry about the old body. How I thought they meant they would dispose of it." River listened, but I could see them pulling away from me in their mind. "This is too much," they said. Then they left. A few minutes later, I saw something outside the hospital window that made my whole body go cold. Just for a second, I thought I saw my old face in the parking lot. I called my mother, but it went to voicemail. "Hey, it's Dee. You know what to do." "Mom," I said, then stopped. because I realized she would not know my voice. "Please pick up. Please," the voicemail cut off. That was when I understood the true cost. No one knew me now. No one would believe me. I needed to get home. I needed to find River and explain before they decided I was not me. I called the nurse and asked how soon I could leave. Once the vaccines were done and papers were signed, they said maybe that night. I told them to hurry. I do not think I had ever asked a cab driver to go so fast. The only thing I could think about was River. My new heart pounded the whole way. When we reached the apartment, the door was open. I knew immediately something was wrong. "Call the police," I told the driver, tossing him a card River had given me earlier. Then I went inside. The apartment was quiet. I moved slowly through the living room. Nothing looked right, but nothing looked completely broken either. Then I saw blood on the rug. A trail of it led toward the kitchen. I looked for a weapon and grabbed an old sports trophy from a shelf. I had won it years ago, back when I did track and field, back when I still believed I could outrun myself. I stepped into the kitchen. My old body was standing by the sink. It was facing the window, holding something down near the counter. For one terrible second, my mind could not understand what I was seeing. Then I realized River's hand was trapped in the garbage disposal. River saw me first. Their eyes widened, and they screamed. The thing wearing my old body turned. It looked like me, but there was no life in its eyes. No fear, no anger, no soul, just an empty body moving with purpose. It threw River to the floor. I lost control. I ran forward and slammed the trophy into the back of its skull. It staggered, but did not fall. It kicked River hard against the fridge, then turned toward me. I swung again and again, smashing at the face I had hated for years. It grabbed my arm and twisted. Pain shot through me. Then it reached for a butcher knife and drove it into my side. I fell back, gasping. It kept coming. "What are you?" I asked. It did not answer. It moved slowly, methodically, like a machine. I threw things at it to slow it down, then shoved the couch toward the kitchen entrance and ran out of the apartment. The street outside was nearly empty. The cab was gone. Behind me, the thing stepped out of the building. Its lifeless eyes searched for me. So I ran. I shouted for help. But my voice was new. My face was new. My neighbors would not know me. For all they knew, I was the attacker, and the person wearing my old face was the victim. I ran into a playground and hid behind the equipment, gasping for breath. The only way to stop it was to kill it. That thought came clearly. It still had some of my memories. That was how it found River. That meant it might know how I thought, where I would hide, what I would do. So I had to stop acting like the old me. When it came close, I grabbed a handful of sand and threw it into its eyes. Then I kicked it hard between the legs. It staggered, but made no sound. No pain, no reaction. Then it grabbed me by the throat and slammed me against a tree. "Help!" I screamed. An old man with a dog was nearby. The dog started barking wildly. Before the man could react, the dog pulled free and charged at the thing. It bit the thing's ankle. The grip on my throat loosened, and I fell to the ground, coughing blood. "Get away!" I shouted to the old man. Then I heard the dog yelp. The thing bent down and bit into the dog, tearing away part of its fur and snout. The poor animal ran off screaming. The thing looked back at me with fur and skin hanging from its mouth. Then it dropped onto all fours and ran toward me like a dog. I scrambled toward the road. A car had stopped nearby. the driver stepping out to see what was happening. "Let me in," I shouted. They only stared at me in confusion. I did not have time. I hit them, grabbed their keys, and got into the car just as the thing slammed onto the back of it. I hit the gas in reverse. The car shot backward and pinned my old body against the same tree. The alarm screamed. I held the pedal down, shaking, trying to crush it. But somehow, it pushed the car away. I fell into the back seat. My hand hit a panel that opened into the trunk area. The thing smashed at the glass, clawing through it, reaching for me. I reached blindly into the trunk. Its hand grabbed my ankle. My fingers closed around a tire jack. It pulled me out of the wreckage, and I swung with everything I had. The tire jack smashed into its face. It fell. This time, I did not stop. I kept hitting it. Again, 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 until the skull was crushed, until the face was gone, until there was nothing left that looked like me. Then I collapsed beside it, laughing and screaming at the same time as pain finally swallowed me. The last thing I heard before passing out was police sirens. In the dark, I saw my reflection again.